So, good morning, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, and the participants. On behalf of FICCI and myself, it gives great pleasure in welcoming you all for the FICCI SOHAR webinar, Assessing Industrial and Logistic Solutions to Maximize Your Market Reach. I take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Omar Al Maharizi, CEO, SOHAR Freezone, Mr. David Narang, member of FICCI's National Executive Committee, Ms. Malvika Khimji, Director Khimji Ramdas, Ms. Amy Horn, the FTA Advisor for the SOHAR Free Zone, and Mr. Samir Gupta, Head of Production, Planning, Shipping and Logistics of Jindal Sahid. SOHAR Port and Free Zone, a joint venture between the Port of Rotterdam and the Sultanate of Oman, is one of the fastest growing port and free zones in the world, handling almost 60 million tons of cargo. SOHAR is currently home to metal, petrochemical, automotive, and food clusters that provide downstream industries in iron, steel, marble, quartz, chemicals, fertilizers, plastics, just to name a few. We are certain that this session will give you insights into how SOHAR Port and Freezone provides unrivaled benefits through its competitive utility prices, attractive incentive packages, and rich sources of raw materials, in addition to the benefit of the free trade agreements for duty-free access on qualifying products. With these introductory words, I request Mr. David Narang, National Executive Committee member of FICCI, Country Head of India of Syndicatum Renewable Energy Company and Syndicatum Carbon Capital India Private Limited, to make his welcome remarks. Sami Al-Asmi will be our moderator for this webinar today. Sami joins us from Oman and has extensive experience in working for the logistics and the trade sector. Before I hand over to Mr. Narang, some housekeeping rules that we will follow today. I request all participants to keep their mics in mute and deliver your address when called upon by our moderator. The meeting is being recorded for posterity. Please place your queries, comments in the chat box or the query box, which our moderator shall pick during the question answer session. Over to Mr. Narang. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you very much. Mr. Omar Al-Mahrazi, the CEO of SOHAR Free Zone. Miss M.R. Huan, she's joining us from the East Coast. It's 2 a.m. over there. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Malvika Khimji, good morning to you. And of course, you belong to the family, the most notable Indian origin family in Oman. I've had the pleasure of meeting your father. Good morning to you. Sami Al-Hasmi, good morning to you, and thank you for being the moderator. Samir Gupta from Jindal Iron and Steel, good morning to you, and all the officials from the Embassy of India who are joining us this morning. I can't see a name, so my apologies. I cannot address you by name, so good morning to you as well. And all my colleagues from FICCI and all the participants, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to very briefly, give some introductory remarks. I've had the pleasure of visiting Oman as a leader of the representing India for the Arab League meeting, along with Gautam and Alok, and that was a very memorable trip. I must say, my first trip in 2016. And those of us who have not visited Oman and are on this webinar, please visit Oman. It is an unbelievable country. You will certainly not miss India, because almost everybody could speak in Hindi, which came as a surprise to me, and that not really the actual Hindi, but the Hindi from Mumbai, not what we speak in North India. So, and people are very warm, very friendly, and it's almost, I mean, they are family to Indians. So it's a remarkable country and a huge potential. Just few statistics for Indo-Oman bilateral relation. Our bilateral trade for the year 2020-21 stood at 4.63 billion US dollars. There were investment flows both ways, which have been very robust despite the pandemic. And there are a number of joint ventures established in both the countries. I'm told that about 4,000 Indo-Oman joint ventures in Oman with estimated investment of over 7.5 billion US dollars. Indian companies have emerged as large investors in Oman, particularly at Sohar and Salal free zones. So that's very encouraging. And of course, as we all are aware, India is among Oman's top trading partner. Indian exports to Oman were 2.26 billion. Oman was India's 35th largest export market for the year 1920. India's imports from Oman were at 3.6 billion. Oman was India's 29th import source, etc. I mean, I can go on with these statistics which FICCI's provided me. But more importantly, I think trade has to be both ways. We have to have investment flows both ways. And it is certainly an opportunity for Indian companies to be present in the economic zone. Uh, and the amount of reception or the amount of cooperation we got when we went there, even though it was, I think, about 5 years ago. Alok, remind me, it was in December or was it some in December 16, correct? Yeah. So, well, as FICCI has played a very important role, not only taking several delegations to Oman, but also reciprocating delegations from the Oman Chamber. We had organized an India Pavilion in the 9th edition of Oman Health initiative of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. The Oman Health Exhibition and Conference was the international trade event where FICCI participated, which actually showed the advancement of Oman's healthcare. But I see personally a lot of opportunity in renewable energy, which was just coming up in Oman in 2016, in a lot of other areas, especially now with the pandemic, of Indian companies actually extending farmer help in Oman or setting up facilities there, or be it manufacturing to cater to the other parts in the Middle East. So there is a huge opportunity. The healthcare industry is, of course, undergoing a major transformation, and with huge amount of budgets allocated by the government of Oman. Um, we have also, FICCI has also taken several initiatives like organizing a virtual global event this year in the last quarter of 2020, encouraging all geographies of the world where we will be engaging with our MU partners in Oman, like OCCI. Where I believe that the first virtual exhibition of health and hygiene was in June last year. I believe that also went off extremely well. Now, having said this, I would again encourage Indian companies and those people who have not been to Oman to please go to Oman and see the opportunities which exist in Oman. I can see Pankaj Khimji. Welcome, Pankaj. I don't know if you remember, we met at the Indian Embassy in 2016 in the Arab League. I led that delegation. Over to you, Sammy. I believe you're going to be moderating. I have spoken enough. I wish the very best to everybody on this, all the panelists and all the participants.
Thank you, Devin, for this wonderful introduction on Oman, and it's a pleasure to participate with you guys. And Omar and Sami, thank you for taking the initiative, and I wish you all the best.
Pankaj bhai, namaskar. Gautam बोल रहा हूँ FICCI से.
How are you, Gautam? So
I'm
good to see
good.
you after a long time.
Yes, nice to see the father and the daughter together.
Well, I'm not sure whether she's happy about seeing me over here, but I think she'd be better off if I'm not around. But anyway, let's see how it goes. But
You,
Okay.
you can
to
you
Omar
can be in the
and Sami.
background. It's good to see the next generation take over, Pankaj.
Like how? Tell
Thank
me
you
about
very
it.
much, Mr. Pankaj.
Thank you.
Great
See you around,
seeing you.
Take care.
Mr. Gautam, thank you very much. Mr. Ranang, thank you very much for the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, before we start our program, I encourage you all to make use of the chat and Q&A tools. I would like to hear from everyone here with us. So please send in your name, organization, and the industry you represent in the chat room now, and specify your questions later on in the Q&A, which will be after the discussion panel. Now to hear from Sahar Port and Freezone, its strategic advantages, offerings, and value proposition to your business, we have Mr. Omar Al-Mahrazi, CEO of SOHAR Freezone. Omar has 20 plus years of experience in different industries, from financial services, oil and gas, academia, and now logistics. But before that, we will view SOHAR Port and Freezone's corporate video, so enjoy the viewing.
It all starts here, where the future is being made. In SOHAR Port and Freezone, an important crossroads for key trade routes in Asia and Europe, and where it is easy to reach the biggest markets in the region through sea, land, and air.
It seems like, as always, the technical challenge, but we'll connect again and play it again.
It all starts here, where the future is being made. In SOHAR Port and Freezone, an important crossroads for key trade routes in Asia and Europe, and where it is easy to reach the biggest markets in the region through sea, land, and air. And home for leading local and foreign industrial investments, enabling an integrated logistics system designed to facilitate international trade through cutting-edge technologies. SOHAR is a global logistics hub that hosts SOHAR Port, a one-of-a-kind global port equipped with deep water jetties capable of handling the world's biggest vessels, transferring goods and raw materials to and from the free zone in record time, forming together the only trade and logistics hub of its kind in the region. Goods and materials travel from here to millions of people around the world. These goods range from natural resources to petrochemicals, and from industrial products to food. All of that is achieved through our continuously improved logistics and technical solutions. It is a never-ending endeavor that inspires us to accelerate the growth of our carrying capacity, and inspires us every day to improve our energy efficiency and production through the use of renewable resources, while keeping our working environment equally safe and attractive to the best talents. We are driven by an immense passion to excellence, one that makes us one of the fastest growing ports and free zones in the world. We aspire to attract more investment and rewarding partnerships, where we work for our partner success in every possible way. Sustainability is at the heart of our business. So is our commitment to Oman Vision 2040. SOHAR is surrounded by pristine nature and culturally rich communities, a place to call home. Here, is to making strides towards becoming the logistics hub of the future. It all starts here. SOHAR Port and Freezone.
Good morning, and I hope you will be able to hear my voice and see the slide that I have presented. To all our respected attendees and guests, good morning. To our guests from India, namaste, and Bochria for making up time today for you to attend here with us. I'm sure, like me and all other participants on the call, we'd have much rather had this on a normal interaction and physical interaction where we can see each other and interact with each other on distance. Unfortunately, it's abnormal times, and we have to make up with wonderful interactions through our webinar. In my presentation, I would like to shed some light on specific attractions of SOHAR and hopefully get you interested in exploring further the business opportunities that we will briefly touch on. Also on the onset, I would like to thank again all participants and in particular FICCI for organizing the event. It's been a lot of hard work so far, and I'm very glad to see the numbers of participants and attendees reaching the number that it is now. So a big thank you to FICCI and the organizing team from SOHAR as well. Okay, so SOHAR is one of the world's fastest growing ports and free zones in the world. It's a powerful combination between the government of Oman and the expertise of Port of Rotterdam. It's been established now for 15 years. We're going into actually the 16th year, and we've been seeing growth year on year right from the onset. Oman, as you'd appreciate, it's strategically located at the crossroads of the global routes between Europe and Asia. In particular, I would like to highlight that we are connected to more than 85 ports globally. To give you a gist of it, the sailing distance between Oman and the US is between 18 to 21 days. That's a huge advantage for shippers and exporters to those countries. When it comes to our connectivity to India, that had improved largely through the direct services that were introduced in recent years. I think from Neva Shiva to us here in Sahar, it's about 3 days shipping and less. We have 6 weekly services. Add to that also the air connectivity to and from India, with more than 20 weekly services to various cities in the Indian subcontinent. That all makes us particularly attractive, especially that we are located outside the Gulf. So that is already 1 day less of sailing if you are going to the upper Gulf. From a national perspective, Sahar is the main port for all imports into Oman. More than 70% of the imports to the Sultanate comes through the port of Sahar. It comes through the port of Sahar, and then from there it can easily be delivered by land through the extensive network that we have in Oman. There is a 6-lane dual carriageway all the way to Muscat, similarly to the UAE. And now the good news is that through the visit of His Majesty to the Saudi United Kingdom, they have been certainly commitment to open the road between Oman and Saudi Arabia. It's about 600 kilometers, and that takes you to the heart of KSA, which is the largest consumer market in the Gulf area. So you could imagine all the opportunities that we have through that. Imagine the opportunities that you have through the connectivity to Sahar. And let me tell you, in short, it's very, very efficient, and we always rank very high. In fact, we rank the highest as a country in Oman when it comes to the United Nations ranking in terms of the time of ships to bunker at our own ports. So we are one of the fastest, if not the fastest port in the world. Okay, so more into our value proposition. So our value proposition is really predicated on the fact that we are an integrated logistic hub with a well-established industrial clusters, making us almost the only company of its kind in the region, with port and the free zone all under one management, under one roof. So when you are dealing with us, you are dealing with one entity that can give you multiple solutions, whether it's connectivity solutions, marine solutions, or free zone solutions. In particular, here I'd like to highlight some points. In terms of location, Oman is actually enjoying political and economical stability. It is blessed with natural beauty, as mentioned by some of the colleagues on the call already. Rich culture and heritage makes it an ideal place for the ideal country, for a place to be living in, and as well as work and enjoy life. So we pride ourselves of being, as they sometimes call us, the Switzerland of the Gulf. In terms of ease of doing business, one of the most annoying things, if you are a trader or if you are an investor coming into or going into any country, is that you have to deal with multiple entities in order to get your trade moving on. We assure you that through our one-stop shop services and the authorities that we have, that you don't need to worry about that. It's one-stop in terms of all your permits, all the required legal requirements and so on can be done with our staff here. In fact, those services are now electronically available, and it's a, as they say, it's a blessing of the pandemic. We have accelerated our plans in order to make all those services happen electronically. And there are very good examples over the last year where we had investors coming, making their commitments, signing their contracts all electronically, and now their facilities are under construction. Sahar also benefits from the free trade agreement with multiple countries, and in particular the U.S. This will be a particular highlight of the presentation of my colleague Emi, who will shed more light, being the expert in this field herself, and being part of the team who had actually established the whole framework. So I'll leave that to the expert, as they say. Whenever we're making investments, whenever we are taking on a new venture, cost is always important. So one of our value propositions is that we have a very competitive logistic cost, because simply we are one unit between the port and the free zone. That gives you a huge advantage when dealing with us. Also, another good cost saving model is the proximity to the raw materials. And I'll be speaking a little bit more on that as well when it comes to the opportunity. There is an abundance of natural resources that are available around us within the vicinity, and also a lot of manufactured raw materials in terms of plastic, in terms of steel, pallets, and so on. We still enjoy a low-cost energy as well. That is something that we feel is attractive. The energy supply is also very stable because all the power plants and the water distillation plants are actually located in the port itself, with ample capacity to handle the extra growth that we have. Sahar, in terms of ecosystem, is also an emerging green energy business destination. We have developed already, as you saw in the video, solar plant, the first solar plant that is actually feeding directly into one of the ferrochrome factories and supplying them with renewable energy. Also, we are actively exploring hydrogen solutions. In terms of the business solutions that we offer multiple solutions when it comes to your business. We do also have a variety of products, apart from land, there's warehouses, there's offices. All of those are ready to use, and the team is well experienced in order to facilitate all your requirements as you go along your journey of investment. Right, this was mentioned earlier also about the bilateral trade relationships. Here, I'm just reiterating really the fact. I would like also to say that it's always, as an investor, it's quite reassuring to know that you are not taking the risk of being the first. So here, what we can see is that there are well-known business houses coming from India, choosing Oman as their destination of their investments. In fact, maybe I'll talk a little bit about the top investment areas that we have seen so far, and those are the areas in iron, steel, cement, fertilizers, textiles also have been a growing area, cables and chemicals. So you can see that those are the main investment areas that we have between Oman and India. We would like to grow this a little bit more. In terms of how we are located and how we are actually organized, as you can see, the port is at the sea end. It has 21 square kilometers of area. It is connected through a bonded corridor, which takes about 6 to 8 kilometers in length. Takes about 14 minutes for the good to transit, and takes almost half an hour for all of the goods to be transported between the port and the free zone. So it's almost nothing. It's well below 45 minutes here. This is a bonded corridor, which means that you don't have to clear your customs or do anything. You just take the shipment, bring it into the free zone, and from there to your warehouses and so on. Also, the way that we are organized and the way that we are investing in our own port and the free zone, it's a landlord model. So, which means that we have world-class operators who do handle all the cargo that comes and arrives to our port or leaves our port. So, for example, our container terminal is operated by Hutchison Ports, which is the well-known operator worldwide, based in Hong Kong. Our general cargo terminal is operated by Stanwich, and they do this very efficiently, and they take care of all the general cargo products. We also have oil and liquid terminals operated by oil tanking, as well as some of our big clients are operating their own jetties and terminals. So all in all, it's a thriving business. We do more than 1 million tons weekly. We've been hitting the numbers very high, and day on day, we prove that we are efficient and safe to do so. Again, in particular here, zooming into some of our big clients from India, as I mentioned, textile, steel, Jindal, Shady, which we'll hear from Mr. Samir later on. L&T is a well-known company, plus recently and new additions are Sanvera, who are specializing in Pitcock. So we see a lot of growth there. 35% of the total companies within the port and the free zone are coming from India, with more than 670 million USD in investment. I think that, again, hopefully just cascades the trust that colleagues from India and friends from India have put in the port and the free zone. And I could tell you that almost everybody is talking to us about expansions, despite the difficult times that the whole economy is going through. Of course, add to that also is hopefully recently we'll celebrate the opening of a quartz factory owned by or main investor of it being the Kimchi Group, as well as Medaf from India. So hopefully that will be soon fully operational. Right, so what are the offerings that we have? Probably this will be something that you'll be interested to know. So we have long lease land and pre-built warehouses. We have service corridors linking the two. There are no sales restrictions to GCC on payment of local duties. No minimum capital requirements, 100% foreign ownership is also available. Zero personal income tax that will be enjoyed as long as the investment is in the free zone. More than 25 years of corporate tax holidays as well. So those are some of the benefits that we offer as a free zone. Right. We talked about opportunities, and here we're just highlighting some of the opportunities that we thought of. They are probably more from the areas that you are working on and you are interested in. So we are not limited to what you will see in the coming 2 slides, and we are happy to talk and facilitate more opportunities. What you see in this slide is opportunities concerning the downstream from plastic. Because of the availability of raw material, we have recently commissioned in Oman one of the world's largest petrochemicals or polymer-based factories, which is Dua Plastics. It has all the grades of polymers that are available also on very close proximity to any factory within the area. Metals is another area that has always been there with us right from the onset of the port, whether it's steel, copper, limestone, aluminium, ferrochrome. Ferrochrome, in fact, have been a popular downstream in metals. We've seen lots of interest here. The main market to it is actually China, where it goes into the stainless steel productions. But equally, the aluminium is there to explore steel. We see that as a strong opportunity for people to come and invest in. Recently, and through the investment of Vinod Pitti, we are now also having the largest cotton yarn facility in the Middle East. They can do all products, and the biggest advantage here is that there is downstream opportunities and capitalization on the Oman U.S.A trade agreements. Other opportunities, and the perhaps largest also in terms of the bilateral current trade is actually in food and beverages. As you know, more than 85% of pulses and grains are imported into the GCC countries. Main source of it is actually India. So there are great opportunities for cold storage, food processing unit, as well as food logistics. I'd also like to highlight here that we have a dedicated cluster that we have put through and dedicated for food, both at the port end as well as the free zone end. Also, in terms of trade, you'll be pleased to know that we have already ready-made warehousing solution and logistics. There is always room to explore this. They are flexible solutions. We even, in fact, have pallet by pallet rentals in some of our warehousing investors. We all are at this time in age conscious about clean energy, and development of solar power projects is something that we talk about a lot with the government, with our investors, and the actual manufacturers of solar. We in Oman pride ourselves of having those natural resources that can be converted into energy. We are extending our plans to hydrogen, green ammonia, and the beauty is whatever is or can be produced from those two elements can be obviously be consumed within very short distance in the port or in the free zone itself. So a huge opportunity there for us to explore. Right, so again, it's important and very, very important for us here in Oman to make people welcome, feel at home. And Sahar is certainly a place where you can enjoy many social events and many cultural events as well. In particular, we have schooling. So the Indian school is already well established in Oman, with more than 35 locations, but in particular, some of its biggest campuses are actually in Sahar. There is an active social society chapter in Oman. Of course, we cannot have a meeting with our Indian subcontinent investors without talking about cricket. And I will stop here because also I'm sure they are better experts in cricket on the call than me. And since we are unable to offer you any hospitality because of the restrictions and distance, we at least thought we will show you a photo of what can be nice food that we can also offer in Sahar. Thank you very much for that. I hope my presentation was informative, and I would also like to thank you all once again for attending. We have colleagues who are designated to be the contact points from there on to facilitate any questions, and will also be available throughout the call for any further questions, and hopefully receive comments from you and follow-ups on the call. So thank you very much, and have a nice day. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Omar. Really appreciate the extensive and informative presentation that you shared with us from Sahar Port and Freezone. And we're seeing the questions coming into the Q&A chat. Reminder to everyone, our attendees, your participation is highly encouraged. Submit your comments and interact with us in the chat room. But remember to always post your questions in the Q&A feature and direct it to the person or organization. So if you have any questions related to Sahar Port and Freezone or Omar, please send them in the Q&A feature, as Mr. Alok and our support team mentioned in the chat room. Now, in addition to location and interconnectivity, an opportunity that would give your business leverage is the Oman U.S. Free Trade Agreement. How can you utilize Sahar Port and Freezone to access the U.S. market? With us is Mrs. Emmy Hahn, FTA advisor for Sahar Port and Freezone. She has been an integral part of formulating and implementing the Oman U.S. Free Trade Agreement, supporting the business community in both countries, working as FDI advisor for the Omani government, and co-founding the Oman American Business Council. Emmy, over to you.
Thank you, Sammy. And a very early good morning to everyone from the East Coast of the USA. I would say it's just a little before 3 o'clock here, so I'm really enjoying the early morning webinar. All right, so I will be covering how you can manufacture in Sohar to access the US market through utilizing the Oman US Free Trade Agreement. But before that, I want to dig into some of the specifics that some of the other trade agreements that Oman has access to. Oman has 5 free trade agreements, 1 bilateral and 4 multilateral. We have the GCC agreement, which has the 6 GCC countries, and then the GCC has FTAs with Singapore, with the European Free Trade Agreement from Iceland, I always say this word wrong, so Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland, and the Greater Arab Free Trade Area with the 11 countries that are listed here. All of these FTAs allow for greater access to markets with reduced tariffs of the trade of goods. So now moving on to the US FTA. As mentioned before, this is Oman's only bilateral FTA. Oman is one of the 14 free trade agreements that the US has with 20 countries, including 5 in the MENA region. The negotiations started in 2005, it was implemented in 2009, and in 2019, we hit the 10-year mark, which is important because all the applicable tariffs have now been eliminated. The major provisions of the Free Trade Agreement are reduction of tariffs, commitment to open markets, and protection for labor and the environment. There are 22 chapters to the FTA, and each contain different trade facilitation measures designed to expedite the movement of goods and services between the two countries. There are chapters on safeguards, intellectual property rights, government procurement, labor, environment, dispute settlement, all which improve the regulatory environment for bilateral trade and investment. The important aspect to note from my presentation today is that for exporters of Omani goods seeking FTA benefits, the nationality of the company in Oman is not important. So even if the company is not Omani or American, if the Omani good meets the rules of origin and are exported to the US, they will likely qualify for benefits. So you can manufacture your good in Sohar as an Omani product and receive 0% tariffs into the US market and exemption from merchandise processing fees. However, in saying this, there are stipulations under the FTA referring to rules of origin, and I'll talk about that in my next slide. But for companies looking into exporting into the US, this is a great time to explore Sohar. US tariffs on China mean that American companies are actively looking to diversify their supply chain, and Omani products are a great alternative due to the duty-free access. Okay, so as mentioned before, the rules of origin are an extremely important aspect of the Free Trade Agreement. So in order to qualify as an Omani good, the good needs to be one of two things. It needs to be wholly produced in Oman, or the good becomes a new or different article of commerce from Oman through a minimum of 35% substantial transformation. So basically, a good that has been substantially transformed must have a new name, character, or use. So some simple examples of substantial transformation include you import wood, you export a wood table. You import a glass sheet, you export a car windshield. So, and one example of something that might not qualify would be if you import a blank ceramic vase and then you only hand paint it and you export it. So the rules of origin are extremely important, and we can answer more questions on that if you have specific questions. Also, I want to quickly mention the steel and aluminum tariffs from 2019 and 2020 under the Trump administration. So under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, the president has broad power to adjust imports through tariffs. Omani steel and aluminum goods are subject to Section 232 tariffs. And as of now, the Biden administration has not withdrawn the Section 232 tariffs, though the US and foreign companies are hopeful that this will come in the near future. Textiles. Again, textiles is also another very important chapter of the Free Trade Agreement. It's covered in Chapter 3. Oman previously had a tariff preference level, or the TPL, for Omani textiles. That expired in December 2018, and now there are no longer any quotas for the textiles going to the US market. However, there are strong rules of origin in the Free Trade Agreement for textiles that require that imports of most textiles be assembled from inputs made in the United States or Oman from the yarn stage forward. So this is known as the yarn forward rule. And in addition, there's a fiber forward rule, which applies to knit fabrics of cotton and man-made fibers and most yarns. So this is just touching the surface of the textile chapter. So, you know, it can be very complicated. If you're a textile manufacturer interested in Sohar, we encourage you to reach out directly to us. Sohar is proud to have a number of Indian investors who are utilizing the FTA. In fact, all Indian investors in the port and free zone, all the Indian investors in the port and the free zone, 50% of them are utilizing the agreement by sending their products to the US market. And 38% of those indicated that the free trade agreement was a major decision factor for choosing to manufacture in Sohar. And the majority of these companies are in metals and minerals. So Sohar is available to advise your company on the US-Oman Free Trade Agreement. We are here to assist you. We can understand your product and analyze it to see its applicability under the agreement. We can assist you with procedures for utilizing it. We can help you with importing from SOHAR to the US. And we can also assist you with advanced rulings from Customs and Border Patrol. So thank you for your time today, and I look forward to answering any questions that you might have on accessing the US market through SOHAR Port and Freezone.
Thank you very much, Emmy. And a reminder to all our attendees, your participation is highly encouraged, especially in the chat. Submit your comments and interact with us. And remember to always post your questions in the Q&A feature and direct it to the person or organization. So for example, now, as we finished with the presentation from Emmy with regards to the Oman-US FTA, or the Free Trade Agreement, you can send them in the Q&A feature now. We noticed a couple of questions with regards to the presentations that have been presented now. I would like to confirm to everyone that they will be shared indeed with everyone after the session. Now, as Omar mentioned earlier, not only do Oman and India share historical trade relations, and that continues till date with successful and strong presence in Sohar Port and Freezone. We have our discussion panel now with two of Sohar Port and Freezone's key stakeholders, an industrial success story from an Indian investor in Sahar, that's Jindal Shady, represented by Mr. Samir Gupta, Head of Production Planning, Shipping and Logistics, and Kimji Ramdas, an Oman-based company with experience working in Sahar and India, represented by Mrs. Malvika Kimji, Director at Kimji Ramdas. Thank you both for joining us today, and as we showcase the industrial and logistics solutions within Sohar Port and Freezone, we would like to start off by giving each of you a minute to introduce your company and the operations within Sohar.
Sam, you are muted.
Yes, Samir, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Sami. Good morning to all friends. Jindal started our journey in Oman back in 2010 when Jindal Steel and Power Limited acquired Shady Iron and Steel. And we are proud to say that today we are the largest and the first integrated steel plant in Oman. We have invested close to $1.2 billion in Oman, and we have brought the latest steel making technology to this part of the world. We are today manufacturing about 1.8 million tons of DRI and 2.3 million tons of steel and about 1.5 million tons of rebar every year. We are located in the Sohar Industrial Port area. We have our own captive jetty of 600-meter length. We are importing close to 3.5 million tons of raw materials every year, a lot of it from India. We are also exporting about more than 1 million tons of steel every year. And, we are the only plant in GCC which has a vacuum degassing facility, which helps us in producing special grade alloy steels, which can be used by downstream industries for special applications, ranging from automotive parts to all sorts of applications. We are also exporting rebars and other steel products to all parts of the world, North and South America, Europe. We have even started this year exports to Australia. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Malvika?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this panel on behalf of Kimji Ramdas. A little bit about my company. The Kimji family migrated from India to Oman more than 150 years ago. KR was said to be established in 1870, and recently in the year 2020, we've celebrated 150 years of our organization, where we've been in the trade for 6 generations now. And I'm very proud to say we've grown thanks to the proximity Oman has with the rest of the world. We have about 5,000 employees and 4 verticals, which include consumer products, projects in logistics, infrastructure, and the lifestyle group. In terms of our relationship with Sahar, we initially set up a two-man office in 2002. That was around the time the construction for SOHAR Port had started. Today, we have about 3 shipping offices and around 60 people based out of Sahar. It's only an area which is going to grow. There's a lot of potential. And we also have all of our asset base in Sahar due to the excellent road network and connectivity Sahar has with not just within Oman, but even the rest of the GCC. So this has been one of the deciding factors for our asset base to be there. In 2001, we set up a joint venture with Godrej, which is Godrej Kimji factory. It manufactures steel products, again, mainly for the US market. And the reason we chose to set up in Sahar, again, was connectivity. As mentioned by Umar, in 2020, we partnered with Madhav Marbles for a quartz manufacturing unit in the SOHAR Free Zone. It's 100% export oriented, thanks to the free trade agreement that Oman has with the US. And the production has started in Q2 of 2021 already. So there's a lot we see that we can do with Sahar and SOHAR Port and Freezone as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Malvika. That's true. And going into the relationship between Oman and India, as we started from both sides, FICCI and SOHAR Port and Freezone, it has always been centered around trade. And can you highlight how the logistic solutions have strengthened that throughout the past few years? Malvika?
Sure. So the Oman and India trading relationship, as most of us know, it goes back to several millenniums, if I may say.
Yes.
Today, it's supported by excellent diplomatic relations as well. Many Indians migrated to Oman over the years due to trade, and they have been very successful, again, because of good relationships. In terms of the shipping services that are provided in Sahar and by KR, there are multiple things that can be done in Sahar, starting from custom clearance, transportation, vessel agency activities. So there's a lot to offer, and today KR is a one-stop logistics provider in that aspect.
That's true, and thank you very much, Malvika. And Kimji Ramdas and Jindal Shady, there are two names that are always associated with Sahar Port and Freezone. As long as I remember working in the logistics industry, both names have been associated with the free zone and port. And Jindal Shady specifically, Samir, if you could tell me, because you are truly an industrial success story in Oman, can you tell us why did Jindal Shady choose Sahar as the location for its business?
Thank you, Sami. I think Sohar was a very easy choice for us, location-wise. It's the geographical location at the start of the Persian Gulf is very conducive for trade. It's also a deep water port wherein we can bring in Cape-size vessels to bring in our raw materials. The electricity prices and the natural gas prices are also very competitive. And plus, there was already presence of global names like Vale and Rio Tinto and Sohar, which assures us about the business-friendly nature of the government. And we are pleased to say that we have received tremendous support in the last 10 years from the government of Oman. We have been able to complete all our capex projects on time, and today we are contributing about 1.5% to the Oman's GDP. And if you look at it, starting from 2015 to 2020, Oman, we have been able to turn Oman from an importer of steel. Oman was importing about 1 million tons of steel per annum. And today we are a net exporter of steel. Oman is exporting about 1.5 million tons of steel per annum. So that's a great success that we have achieved in the last 5 years, 6 years. Plus, the other great advantage about working in SOHAR and Oman is that the infrastructure facilities in terms of the water supply, electricity supply, natural gas supply, even the general law and order situation, it's fantastic. A steel plant like us, a large capex in intensive unit like us, can only be profitable if it works 350, 360 days a year, right? So the efficiency that we have been able to achieve in SOHAR is great, and this even extends to the port. The climate in SOHAR is very conducive. It's very mild. So in terms of the port, so there are hardly any weather-related disruptions in SOHAR. We have never faced a situation where the vessels are stuck because of bad weather or anything like that, right? So that also helps us in achieving a very efficient supply chain. As we have discussed about the close relationship that Oman has with India, we actually have a situation. We actually have a situation in Sohar where the containers reach from Mundra and Mumbai in 3 days or 4 days, and the documents actually come later than that by courier. So it's very well connected with India. And the connectivity that SOHAR offers to Europe or to Southeast Asia, to entire East and South Africa is tremendous. You can reach all these places within less than 2 weeks, which is great for our business. The FTA, which Emmy has been very kind to explain about, is also very helpful. The direct reduction unit plant that we have is imported entirely from the US. So today, if I have to, we are planning to set up a second DRI, which will also come in duty-free, hassle-free from US. Any spare parts that we need from US, it comes in quickly, no questions. And similarly, we are also able to export rebars to US from time to time. Hopefully, once the Section 232 goes away, we'll have a lot more opportunities. But we still have a couple of downstream customers who buy billets from us and turn it into steel sections and pipes and export to US. So yes, the US Oman FTA is definitely a big plus for our sector. Yep, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samir. It's really great to hear that, especially from the business perspective, with you working within the area. And now, speaking of the business point of view, that's questions to both of you, Malvika and Samir. We'll start with Malvika first. Where do you see opportunities for the business community in India, for the Indian investors in Oman?
I think due to the similarity with cuisine between Oman and India, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the food processing sector. There seems to be a need for food that has been processed in India, in Oman, very regularly. And that's why I feel like that's an area where, there is a potential. Other than food processing, I also think there is a potential in the pharmaceutical industry. With the proximity of India and Oman and the way SOHAR Port and Freezone function with the rest of the world, the pharmaceutical industry really seems to have a strong potential there. Other than that, of course, there's steel processing plants, cement factories. There's enough and more in terms of opportunities and areas that people can invest in Sahar.
Yeah, a plethora of opportunities. What about you, Samir?
Same, Sami. I mean, Oman, the big advantage that Oman has is for our Indian friends, Oman is roughly the size of Maharashtra, but the population is probably less than that of Pune city, right? So it's a fairly empty country. So if you are looking to invest in the mineral sector, there's a lot of limestone, dolomite, gypsum, chromites, copper, lots of minerals here. So you won't really have any issues in terms of the rehabilitation and resettlement kind of expenses. Land acquisition is fairly simple, straightforward. So it will give you a kickstart in starting the industry. The government is also in Oman is also focused on mineral exploration as well as value addition. And uh, uh, any value addition that you do to minerals is fairly energy intensive. So you can make use of the cheap energy prices in Oman. Plus, the port in Sohar is capable of doing any size of shipments, uh, uh, starting from cape size to containers. And also, what has happened in the last 10 years is that Sohar has developed a range of all the basic industries. We have cement, we have steel, we have aluminium, we have a oil refinery, we have plastics, we have textile and yarn. So the basic industries are in place. In the last 8-10 years that I have been in Oman, I've seen Sohar grow like anything. We now have all the ancillary units set up here. We have all the servicing units. We have for all types of equipment, whether they are cranes, forklifts, hydraulic cylinders. We have fabrication shops. So all these in motor rewinding, we have all these things in place. So it's a place. Sohar is a place where industry can be set up very quickly and it can get moving very quickly. So that's a big advantage that we have in Sohar.
That's a state-of-the-art facility, as you mentioned, Samir. That's absolutely right. And before we get into the culture aspect, I know we talked about the food from Omar, and then there was a mention of Oman hosting the World Cricket World Cup soon, inshallah, around October, November. And I know that Pankaj was involved directly with that as the chairman of the Oman Cricket Association. And before we get into the cultural discussion, Mr. Narang, you had your hand raised.
Yeah,
Please.
so I have a question. In fact, I have two questions. One is that what is the cost of renewable energy power if one was to set up a particular unit which has to be based purely on renewable energy, kilowatt per hour? Any guess or any published tariff? Secondly, that there is currently, if I recall from 2016, the renewable energy policy was just being formulated, and therefore, if that policy is in place, what is a blended tariff? So one is a pure renewable energy tariff. What is a blended tariff for electricity, A, as a feedstock for existing units and post expansion? And the third question is, what is the taxation? You've spoken about personal taxation. What is the taxation for industries? And if there are any documents to support this? So if one was to make an investment decision, at least for me, the decision would be the cost of renewable energy power and the what is the other incentives and taxation for corporate taxation within the zone.
All right. Very good three questions there, Mr. Narang. And if you allow me, we'll leave it for the Q&A session. Omar, I hope that's okay, so that we can conclude the panel discussion. If we noted the three questions with the support team, let me know. If just in case, Mr. Narang, I'll ask you to repeat those three questions. And at least you guys have a heads up for that now. And continuing with the panel discussion, we were getting into the cultural aspect. And I remember going to India multiple of times for business. And of course, going there for business, whether you go to Delhi, you go to Mumbai, it's very quick, a couple of days and then coming back. But when I went there for a friend's wedding, and it was a group of international people, I noticed the difference that to me, India was home. There was nothing different. We're used to everything that's there. But for other people from different countries, it was very foreign to them. Like, what is this, roti you call it, or you eat with your hands? And so here, going into the final question of the panel to Malvika and Samir, what are the advantages of having a large established Indian community in Oman from the business, religious, and social perspective? We can start with Malvika.
I think it's a very important point you mentioned, Sami, that you felt like you were at home when you were in India. And similarly, so when people from India come to Oman, they feel like they're at home too. I don't think they have to adapt so much. If my ancestors could do it in the 1800s, I'm sure even more so today. Oman and India share excellent relationships, as we keep saying, but it's because of their cultural similarities that it's easy to share these relationships. Also, there's mutual respect between the people of both nations. There's an understanding, and as you see when you come to Oman, the people in Oman are very open to accepting what the Indians want to do, what they want to follow, how they want to lead their lives. Whether you go to a supermarket or whether you go to a cinema, you will always find an Indian touch, or the fact that there is a proximity with India. In terms of culture and religion, as a family, as a business family, we've always ensured that we maintain that even along the years. And when we set up our factory with Madhav Marbles in the free trade zone in Sahar, we had certain requirements because of Vastu. And I remember the authorities there were very understanding towards it. And, they considered it very normal that we have these requirements. And I think that's great. And again, it all comes down to respect. Over and above that, we have pujas when we start any new businesses. And it's great because, it doesn't seem odd when we do this. Again, as a family, we celebrate Eid with all our employees. We celebrate Diwali with all our employees. We celebrate Christmas. There's no, not even a hint of anybody feeling awkward or feeling like they don't want to do it. All our family within the Khimji Ramdas organization, and when I say family, I mean everybody who works with us, they're very open to this. And it's because the country is very open to this. So I think it's very easy for Indian investors to move, to consider Oman, because they respect one and all.
That's very right, Malvika. Like you mentioned, especially with rituals. I remember I had a friend, he's Indian, but Christian, who had a colleague who unfortunately passed away. He was Hindu, and he contacted me to ask about the authorities and the process for the person that passed away, unfortunately. And I just had to connect him to the municipality, and they helped him with the process in terms of guiding where would it be in Sahar, how it's done, how it's submitted. Khalas, that's it. It's very simple, like you said. And even if I don't know it personally, I know I can connect with people who would know that and would be able to deliver and help out. And what about you, Samir?
Yeah, completely agree with what Malvika has just said. The adjustment coming from India to Oman is very straightforward. It's, for me, I'm come from Nagpur, so the weather in Oman is fairly similar. The summers are as hot as Nagpur, and the winters are fairly mild. The only thing probably I miss is the monsoon, right? But the food here is fairly similar to what we have back in India. There are lots of restaurants of all kinds from all parts of India. You get Indian cinemas here. You have Indian TV channels here. This year we'll have the Cricket World Cup as well. So yeah, I mean, we also celebrate the Indian community here in our company. We get together to celebrate Holi, Diwali, Ganesh Utsav, Navratri, everything. So there are See, Indians probably make up close more than 30% of Oman's population. So there's no unfamiliarity between Omanis and Indians. We've been known to each other for ages. So it's very easy to adjust here. The connectivity is also excellent. I mean, before the pandemic, I could take a flight right after finishing work from Sohar, fly to Doha, and then reach Nagpur by midnight. So it was the connectivity is superb. So it helps a lot for someone who's coming from India to Sohar. It's very easy settlement, and there's a lot of scenic places to see in Oman. So yeah, there are a lot of weekend getaways. You can just pick up your car and drive along the coast, or just drive up the mountains. It's a beautiful country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samir. And again, to our panelists, thank you very much for this enriching discussion about doing business within Sohar Port and Freezone, and your role as your organization's role within the business there. And your input are really appreciated. And with this, we end our panel discussion, and we're going to head into the Q&A session. We will check out the questions we have in the tool that we provided to you, and some were answered. 2 questions were answered, typed in for you, and we'll take in the first one. Mr. Narang, if you saw, I just sent you a message. Just let me know. We'll go with Mr. Dipanakar, and that is a question directed to Omar, I believe. Is there any hold on the projects in Oman government, especially agriculture, and setting up in cattle feed industry? We are seeds exporters, and Oman government is in the midst of buying as samples have been approved. However, the company is in between a large conglomerate in Oman who is directly buying for Oman government, told that the projects have been put on hold due to ongoing COVID crisis, low oil prices, and as there seems to be budgetary issues within Oman. If so, how long it could take to reopen the projects so that the business can be started? Omar.
Right. Thank you very much for the question. The food security is a very top priority for Oman and also the countries around Oman. As you know, with the pandemic, that has proven to be something that is indispensable, especially when the supply chains are disrupted. In particular, in reference to the particulars of the question, there are no restrictions on seeds and animal feed. We already have a small-scale project operational in the free zone with animal feed. They've been there for almost 1 or 2 years. The particular about the company, I would welcome that if the person posted the question is happy to share details, then we can follow up on that one. I think so far we haven't seen restrictions due to COVID, but those are particular, so I'm not in a position right now to give more feedback.
Thank you, Omar. Now, speaking of restrictions, there's a question regarding restrictions, but on type of chemicals industries that you allow to be established. They mean in terms of influence, those are expected from industries.
Right. There are no restrictions to most of the chemicals. There are restrictions, however, to explosives and nuclear-related industries. For the remaining, all can be allowed if they get the required permission. We have a super team when it comes to environment, and they have been here since the onset of the port and the free zone. You can appreciate with all the industries that we do have a wide experience, and also backed up by the experience of Port of Rotterdam. Oman in particular has very clear codes when it comes to chemicals that they adhere to through the international treaties that we have signed in and participate actively in as well. So once again, as long as it's not explosive and nuclears, then for sure it's something that we can host.
Thank you, Amar, for that clarification. And we have a question to FICCI. Does FICCI have a matchmaking services to connect potential Indian companies who are interested in collaborating with Oman companies regarding logistics investment opportunities?
Would you like to answer this?
Yeah, yes, we do. We do this based on our specific queries that we get. We can connect depending upon your requirements, not only to the SOHAR port authorities, but can also do it with OCCI, which is our partner, business chamber partner in Oman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gautam. And we have a question here from Dr. Sanjeev. Do you have any support for healthcare and R&D, healthcare manufacturing, Omar?
Right. Medical supplies, pharma are also very important on the agenda in Oman. Similar to food, we are also encouraged to attract industries that provide us with medicine or pharma security. There are no specific R&D activities that are happening within Oman with regards to pharma and medical supplies. However, there are plenty of opportunities, and we are already in advanced talks with governments and also advanced talks with some of the potential projects in order to set up here in Oman. Having said that, there are R&D possibilities, of course, with some of the government-related entities like IJAD. IJAD is Oman's vehicle for research and development, and it works under the Ministry of Higher Education and Research. We have close collaboration with that entity, and we are sponsoring a lot of those R&Ds as well. So I'm happy to explore this opportunity further and provide connections.
Thank you very much, Omar. And you mentioned in your presentation about the renewable energy, and of course, with the impact of it going forward as globally in general with the G20 and regionally here with the GCC, recently with the Green Initiative. What is the renewable energy capacity available and planned at Sahar? That is a question from Mr. Sundar.
Yes, in terms of renewable energy, they are certainly an area of continuous development. From perspective of the port and the free zone, we have allocated more than 600 hectares for renewables, and we are also talking about a mega 1 giga project on solar, and that we are also happy to share details about that in the future. The particular laws and regulations to renewables, I guess one of the most prominent questions that we have and many of the investors are having is to do with freewheeling and the transmission charges. That is something that is currently not available, and the government, however, presented by the authority for general services, are in advanced talks and in advanced plans to issue transmission charges, and probably this will be Q1 next year. Meanwhile, the projects that we are having in the free zone are based on direct connections, and those direct connections are, as you know, considered as captive power. In terms of the rate is always offered at what we call cost-reflective tariff minus X. So it will always be more competitive because there is less involved in terms of the actual energy used to produce electricity. So it will always be cheaper than the electricity, traditional conventional electricity generated tariffs. So quite happy also to explore this further, talk about it. It's an area that Oman, through 2040 vision, has a specific target to achieve in 10 or 15 years' time. That is also something that our customers consider as important in terms of carbon footprint. So we're quite up for it. We have specialized people who are working on this and a team that is well versed with it. Thanks, Hassan. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Omar. And we'll take a last question from the Q&A before we head out to the questions that Mr. Narang asked. And this is from Mr. Shafiq. And he'd like, please inform if you trade finance facilities for agro-commodities like coffee and spices.
Can you repeat the question again, Sami? I just missed the last part.
Yes, I'll repeat the question. Sorry about that. There was actually, I read the one where Mr. Shafiq, where colleague said that they will respond to you in live or by email. The question from Mr. Rotvik is about the food zone. Is the food zone separately demarcated? The meaning, is it far away from the chemical zone?
The short answer is yes. Food is considered as a sensitive material and commodity. So usually it's enclosed systems. We have the flour mills who are operating now on the actual terminal or jetty. We also have a project which is the sugar refinery. So that is handled with adhering to all specs and all the requirements from the health agencies that we have and environment agencies that we have here in Oman. Of course, when it comes to storage, the storage is available at the free zone, which is only 6 or 7 kilometers away from the port, so at very close proximity. So it's not like miles away. But all of those commodities are operating in closed systems and to ensure hygiene at all time.
Thank you, Omar. And this will be the last one, as I promised Mr. Narang. He did message me the 3 questions, and I'll just reiterate them. And Mr. Narang, if you feel that I missed anything, you can open your mic and ask Mr. Omar directly. So the 3 points that Mr. Narang asked earlier, the cost of renewable energy power, the corporate taxation, and the cost of blended power.
Right. I'll start with the last one. So the cost of blended power is something that we expect to come out soon in this year. It is a combination of generating and then transmitting to the grid, the national grid. This is not yet finalized. As I mentioned briefly, the projects that we have are based on captive power and direct connections. So hopefully we will be obtaining further clarity on the cost of transmission. The other question about tax, yes, it's tax-free. There is no income tax, and there is also exemption up to 25 years on CIT, corporate tax. So all those are insured. Also, probably people would have read recently that the Oman, along with other GCC countries, have introduced VAT. VAT, our companies in the free zone are zero rated when it comes to VAT, so there is no requirement to pay as such as of now. Did I miss one of the questions, or those are the 3?
No, that's good. But as soon as you can let me know, because what we are looking at is an investment where the cost of power, renewable energy power, is extremely important to us. So if it's in the range of 0.3 cents, 0.03 cents kilowatt per hour is something which we would need. So I can connect with you offline. Thank you.
Sure. It will be a pleasure, Diva.
Definitely will do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Narang, and thank you all to our panelists and presenters for the Q&A session. We really appreciate that. And in case if we missed or didn't respond to any of the questions in the Q&A, rest assured that our team will be in touch with you via email and send the contacts or the details that you required, or you can even contact them directed, as Omar and Emmy mentioned earlier in the presentations. Before we conclude the session and I give the conclusion remarks to our colleagues at FICCI, Pankaj, I know that we're hosting the World Cup, and I had a discussion with Zishan and Arun early a couple of months ago, and they said that Oman will definitely be competing and give a tough time to India this time around.
No, listen, this is we're indeed very honored that we will be one of the venues for the forthcoming World Cup in October. We will be hosting the early rounds. We are expecting the BCCI and the ICC delegation arriving as of tomorrow through the weekend. So we're working on our Eid weekend holidays in making sure that this goes off seamlessly. And we're so looking forward to it. And the fact of the matter is that Oman, being the only Asian associate nation to qualify in the World Cup amongst the 16 nations, and plus the only associate nation to ever have hosted or being a venue for the World Cup. So, we are indeed very honored by this present. But it just shows that, Oman is it's at this, if I were just to kind of digress away from the World Cup point, but just to end this talk, the talk is all about, is Oman going to welcome Indian industry? And it needs to be very clear. One, it needs to be an export-oriented industry. It has to be that, one. Number two, you're not going to have any red tapeism, and you're not going to have any social issues coming to Oman. One thing that I didn't hear any of the panelists mentioning, that we're the third or the fourth safest country in the world, period. How often do you get to kind of go and invest and be so close to a proximity of a nation which is so open, so receptive in its people? And what makes Oman different from any nation in the area, because everybody will give you a very cheap power and very cheap, everybody will give you tax-free zones. But it's the social connect that somehow I can't explain what it is that is in Oman that feels you that much more comfortable. And at the end of the day, it's that stomach and your gut which has to tell you. Now, unless you don't visit Oman, and unless you don't go and sit across Omar and experience his hospitality, you're not going to know that. And I think it's very important that whichever industry that's coming over here, and if they don't do the recce properly, you're not going to be able to feel the soft side of the advantages of the soft advantages of coming to Oman. And please be assured that this is something that Oman excels in every way. So I thank you for having me speak, and thank you for being there, and thank you for patronizing Oman as a potential investing hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pankaj. Really appreciate that. And again, big thanks to our colleagues, presenters, Omar and Emmy from Sahar Port and Freezone. And again, our panelists as well, Mrs. Malvika from Kimjiramdas and Mr. Samir Gupta from Jindal Shadid. And on to the conclusion remarks to our colleagues, Mr. Alok or Mr. Gautam. On to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami. In fact, it was a really very good discussion that we had today. And in case the participants have certain questions that they would like to have response from Sohar's side, you may write. In fact, I will request Sohar team to write their email in the chat box, and so that the participants can get in touch with the Sohar team directly. So we would like to thank Mr. Omar Al-Mahrizi, CEO of Sohar Ports and Freezone, for gracing the occasion today and sharing his vision. Would also like to thanks Emmy, Malvika, Samir, Pankaj Bhai, Mr. Naran for sharing their thoughts on investing in Sohar. Would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Praveen Kromar from the Indian Mission in Muscat, and also Mr. A.B. Anand, who's heading Lulu operations in Oman. So congratulations to Pankaj Bhai for getting Cricket World Cup to Oman for this year, and it would be great to watch with presence of a lot of Indians and other cricket playing nations in Oman. The discussions during today's session have reflected good ground realities, reflected the ground realities, opportunities for investing in SOHAR, and have laid a firm ground for opening new windows for engagement. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this program, and we'll be shortly doing other programs in the series focusing on various sectors, and for that we will get in touch with with the Indian companies shortly. Thank you so much.
Before you finally conclude, may I request Amy, particularly, and also Omar, to share their presentations, which we can share with the participants if they so desire. That will be really very helpful. And any document on the renewable energy which Mr. Narang has requested, if that can be shared with him or with us, then we can share it with Mr. Narang particularly. And Amy, thank you so much, because US has always been on a great interest to the Indian industry for as a big export destination. So some document from your side will surely help. Thank you, thank you, Sami. Thank you for conducting this session, and thank you all the panelists for your presence. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pravinji. This assures our government of India's support also, in our efforts in bringing Indian industry to Oman for a greater, economic tie-up between the two countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much to all participants, and of course, I would like to extend my thanks to the immense support that we have received from the Indian Embassy here in Oman. They are in attendance, and thank you very much. It just highlights the backup that we have as industries and investors from both governments and the excellent relationships that we enjoy. So thank you all, and hopefully we see you in future webinars where we are planning to have a zoom into particular industries, again, in collaboration with FICCI. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Omar. Look forward to working with you.
Inshallah. Thanks.